Right, hang on. Have I got to start now?
No, far away.
Right, I'll go now. Right, thank you very much everyone for coming. For those of you who don't know me already, my name's Anthony, and today I'm going to be presenting to you my SWOT and PEST analysis of the Tamdown group, looking at the internal and external constraints that face the business. Just before we start, if everyone can introduce themselves for the camera for me, just for assessment purposes.
Mike Norris, Chairman of the business.
Hi, I'm Mark Wayne, I'm the Group HR Director.
Morning, Richard Hartley, Managing Director of TriConnect.
Hi, Chris Doré, Business Development Director of TriConnect.
Lovely, thank you everyone, and I'll get started now. So in terms of the agenda for today, I was going to look at a bit of Tamdown Group, just to tell you a bit about the group itself. Then I was going to move on to my role within the organisation and how this fits within the aims and objectives of the organisation. Then I was going to look at the SWOT and PEST analysis of Tamdown and how this impacts upon the business from an internal and external point of view. And then finally finish up by looking at future opportunities to add value to the business and for my own learning. So the Tamdown Group, established in 1974 as a groundworks contractor, since then grown to develop into a £100 million plus company in the multi-sector. The company offers services from environmental to infrastructure, high-rise and utilities. The environmental sector of the business covers remediation opportunities, infrastructure covers strategic road developments and housing, the high-rise division covers concrete frame buildings, and utilities is part of TriConnect, which is the other part of the business. So where does my role fit within all of this? I currently work in estimating for the infrastructure team, and as a team we are responsible for pricing and negotiating work with our clients. Within this role, we're also responsible for tendering our subcontracts and also procuring material costs, so that when we submit tenders to the clients, we can make sure that we're offering them current buying rates when we sell our product to them. In terms of the aims and objectives of the department, these link in with my individual aims and objectives within the business, and as a result we have to secure 6.7 million of profitable sustainable work each month for the current financial year. We also have to secure work with 4 new clients and 1 main contractor, and we also have to establish new relationships with new clients to make sure that we can manage the work, the resource of work going forward within the environment. And then finally we have to make sure that we nurture our existing relationships so that we continue to secure work with already established clients. So within the industry that Tamdown operates, there are a number of internal and external factors that can influence the business. In terms of the presentation today, I'm going to use the PEST analysis, which is political, economic, social and technical, to look at the external impacts. And then I'm going to use the SWOT analysis to look at the internal impacts, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. So I'll start with the PEST analysis. From a political point of view, the construction industry is dictated by what the government is doing. In recent news, we've seen that there's been a recent shift in the way the government wants to approach housing, and in May 2015, when the new election takes place, this is going to be top on their agenda. So this for us means increasing demand, so there's going to be the potential there for us to develop the business as it wishes to grow. Only yesterday as well, David Cameron released a Starters Home Initiative. This basically is rolled out to 100,000 first-time buyers and is led to introduce a 20% discount to help new buyers get onto the property ladder. This combined with the government shift is going to really help in terms of us getting on the market and selling Tamdown as a business. This in turn puts pressure on local authorities. Therefore, when local authorities have been enforced to increase the supply of housing, such as the 5-year supply, they've got to keep a rolling supply of housing being delivered to the market. And as a result, they provide like strategic reports, and these sorts of things basically are useful for us in the sense that we can investigate these and see potential opportunities that existing clients might have, or even new clients that we might be able to target might have. So this then helps the business in growth as well. In terms of social housing, the government like to incorporate a lot more social housing these days, predominantly because it's more of a cost incentive for people to get on the property ladder. With this isn't a great incentive for our clients, because they don't gain as much profit from selling the properties. However, for us as a business, this doesn't really affect us because the volume of housing is still there for us to build. So in terms of that, it doesn't really directly impact upon us. And then finally, we've got the release of brownfield land, particularly in areas in and around London. Rather than using environmental rural space, we'd rather use brownfield sites. So potentially here we've got opportunities for the remediation side of the business, where there might be contaminated ground, and also potentially the high-rise division in terms of concrete frames due to land expenses in London being higher than other rural counties. So in terms of the economy, the health of the economy dictates the demand for residential and commercial properties. With the economy being as healthy as it is as we're coming out of the recession, this in turn is going to help promote the demand for housing and therefore the need for us to build them. However, although we've already established the fact that there's potential buy schemes out there, this strategic initiative proposed by David Cameron, banks are being a lot more cautious now coming out of the recession because they know what's happened pre-recession and want to make sure they cover themselves. So there is the possibility here that although mortgages are now, property is now becoming more affordable, actually getting funding for the mortgage and approval from banks is going to become slightly more difficult. Moving on, you've got taxation as a means to put a value on the environment. An example of this could be the landfill tax. This was introduced in 2000, and since then it's gradually increased, moving on up until today. This is something that directly impacts upon the industry, but it hasn't caused us a great problem because the increase has been steady all the way through the process. And then finally, in terms of availability of labour and resources, seeing the news the other day on the BBC about bricklayers in London charging or being paid £1,000 a week. This sort of resourcing isn't sustainable in construction and potentially poses a constraint in terms of how we procure our subcontractors going forward and making sure that we manage these correctly. Social, you've got cultural diversity, so this covers things like birth rates, number of people living in each property, and even location. So there might be more affluent areas than others, and so this would dictate the demand for housing in different areas. You've got net immigration, so this is the amount of people leaving the country versus those coming in. Year on year we see a gradual increase in the numbers coming into the country, and as a result this dictates the demand for new housing. And then finally you've got the north-south divide. Generally speaking, in London there's a lot more demand and the surrounding regions for housing, whereas as you move maybe further north, the demand for housing decreases. So potentially there, where we work within the southeastern areas around London, we're working in one of the most affluent areas within the country. So that's a potential bonus for us there. And then finally, technical. In terms of the way we procure works now, we're being asked to incorporate more sustainable techniques. We found in the past that PV panels and things like that were introduced as a means to be more sustainable, but it's actually found that the end users in some cases didn't actually like these. So as a result, they've kind of gone down this fabric first approach, which basically looks at incorporating thermal efficiency into buildings during the construction stages, and then potentially using these sorts of PV panels as a top up if they don't meet certain environmental credentials. We've also got use of recycled materials. So rather than now using primary aggregates, it's a lot more socially acceptable to use recycled materials. You also then haven't got to pay the taxation on use of primary aggregates, which is also a bonus to us within the industry. And then finally you've got the evolving use of IT on construction sites. So this is basically reducing paper trail, improving the transfer of information between sites and head office, etc. So that kind of concludes the pest analysis side of the external business. In terms of SWOT analysis, I'll look at that now. So strengths, I'd say at the top of the list you've got health and safety culture. This is one of the things that we promote, I'd say the biggest in the business, and our clients really value the clarity that we put into our health and safety. And this underpins the industry, so this is a really vital strength for us. Then you've got size of company within the operating sectors. The fact that we operate in a number of different sectors throughout the industry means that we can cater to a larger proportion of clients and also cater for all their needs. You've then got reputation for delivery and the quality of service we provide. This keeps our clients coming back every time, wanting more, and they're prepared to pay a premium to use us in certain situations. And then finally, you've got financial stability, which this looks at basically our credit rating within the industry, which in terms of, this doesn't just affect our clients, this also affects our subcontracts in the sense that they know that they'll be paid, suppliers know they'll be paid. So basically here, this enables us to manage our subcontract and client base a lot better by having cash in the bank, etc. Weaknesses, although I said size is a potential strength, we're going through a transitional growth period at the moment, and you could argue that in some cases we might be too big for developments, whilst we might be too small for others. And as a result, we could potentially have problems resourcing them or being competitive in price. And then you've also got targeting of working regions. Businesses, since I've been in the business has been growing out and taking in other regions, but not necessarily targeting particular regions that may be quite affluent in terms of development. So maybe we could look at something, a potential opportunity, which I'll come on to now, could be to identify and pursue clients in different target regions rather than potentially look and think, oh, they're out of our patch of working. Another potential opportunity there is the performance management framework. This has been recently rolled throughout the business, and this is offering unfold amount of value to the business because you get everyone singing off the same hymn sheet. Everyone can be contributing to the direct aims and objectives of the business and their department to enable the business to grow. Then you've got nurturing of existing talent. I'd like to think, I mean, I came to the business 18 months ago as new talent, and I've been trained up over the last 18 months. I'm now enrolled on the management degree as well. And basically this links in with nurturing of existing talent. Tamdown are always out to help people develop, whether this be through going on an NEC course that I went on as well, or exposure to sales training. All of these sorts of things help me develop as a person. And then finally, you've got up and coming opportunities for the high-rise and environmental teams, which just touches on what I said earlier about the political side of things and reuse of brownfield sites. And then finally, we've got threats. Basically, we're always going to have typical competition within a thriving market. We're constantly priced against different competitors within different regions, and they're always out to make sure they secure work over you. So they're a potential threat within the market. We've also got the effect of not securing enough profitable, sustainable work. Whilst the business is growing, it might not be the case that we can always secure work how we have done in the past, because we might be uncompetitive, or in certain situations where the business grows, we might not be able to resource a considerable amount of projects at that value. And then this then leads on to the size of projects in terms of risk. So as projects get larger, they go on for longer durations, and you've got then fixed price periods to consider and how we plan these going forward. And then finally, staff retention. The business, or the market at the moment is very, very fluctuating. People are moving around like there's no tomorrow. And so it's about making sure that at Tamdown we keep our staff retention in order for us to grow and manage that going forward. So value and learning opportunities. Basically, I'll start off with the value contributions here. Basically, looking at the SWOT and pestle analysis, these are the kind of things I feel that can potentially add the most value and enable me to learn the most. Value, you've got the PMF. This is going to help the business grow unfold because everyone is going to be working towards the same goals and objectives which the business wants to achieve. You've then got scope for new target regions. As discussed earlier, maybe we could spot particular target regions and utilise those. And then you've got personal development for me. For instance, within my role, I could take on maybe a particular client in a certain region and take more responsibility away from my manager Rob, so that I'm learning and developing and also whilst adding value to the business. And then in terms of learning opportunities, through doing this project, I've realised that I very much live in my local environment, whereas there's a much bigger environment out there for me to wander upon. So that for me is a potential learning opportunity. Not only this, I've got the management degree. This is going to keep me going for the next 2 to 3 years. And here I'm going to be learning about how to manage people, understand the behaviours of people, and how to implement this in my work environment. And then finally, you've got commercial angles and opportunities and tender positioning. On a day-to-day basis, I'm working on new tenders, pricing tenders, speaking to clients. As I develop this, I'm going to gain more commercial understanding of how to position tenders going forward, so that I can add more value to the business and whilst learning at the same time. So today we've covered a brief background of Tamdown and my role within the aims and objectives of the business. Then moved on to look at a SWOT and pestle analysis and raise some interesting points that can impact upon the business from an external or internal point of view. And then finally we finished up by looking at opportunities for value to be added to the business and my potential learning opportunities for the time moving forward. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Smart.
Good, well done. Yeah.
No,
I'll go over.
it's a nice job there, Anthony. Having looked at your role and the business and the environment, as you say, you've gone a bit wider.
Yep.
How would you capture the one thing that comes out of that for you? I mean, there's a number of things on there, but if there was one thing that stood out for you from...
What, in terms of my development so far?
No, just in terms of looking at those, you as an individual, you as
Yep.
a business, and then you as the wider, in the wider market. Have you had any kind of insights? Have you had any kind of shifts that has made you think differently about yourself or the business or the industry?
I'll say certainly in terms of the wider environment, I've been very much focused on what I do day to day and learning that aspect, whereas I've realised that the actual wider environment dictates how we perform as a business and what we do as a business. So I'm going to start to maybe look into, I will start to look into news, current legislation, things that are happening, because these will dictate what we do as a business. So for me to progress, I need to be aware of these things.
Yeah, that's very healthy, because it's quite easy to get inward looking, and there's lots of sources out there.
Yeah.
Good publications, you use question time, broadsheets, really good paper. So yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned the PMF quite a lot.
Yes.
What are you hoping is going to flow out of that? You must have a little bit of a vision in your mind.
Well, I've got my own objectives, aims and objectives set, and I've got processes in place now to manage these for the next year going forward, which I'm then going to review with Rob, which this then enables me next year to then plan and progress more.
Yeah.
So it enables me to learn and develop my skills going forward into the future.
Okay.
And potentially fulfil management roles as I become more capable to do so, what with the degree in that.
You feel pretty fired up about the objectives that we've
Yes.
set for you. They feel very relevant.
Yes.
Okay. Nothing else for me.
That's good.
Well presented, great suit,
Yeah.
good glasses.
I'll spit it at the end.
And I can turn this off now.
Yeah.